Now you would think that there wouldn't be a lot of animals in the world of Subnautica that could come even close to touching the cuttlefish in terms of being adorable. And yet there is one which might just come close, and at that also comes from the freezing and hostile waters of below zero. That Leviathan class organism will be the topic of today's video, being the glow whale, of course. I'll be looking at everything we know about these creatures, where in the map you can find them, how you can interact with them, and any other interesting points of trivia that I'm able to tell you at this point in time. Now, an important disclaimer that we need to make right now is that at the time of making this video, Subnautica Below Zero is still in early alpha, meaning that a lot of this information might become outdated or might need to be updated as the game gets closer to its eventual release. And of course, as with all of the other lore videos, there might be potential story spoilers here, so if you don't want to have anything about the game spoiled, I recommend clicking off and coming back to the video later. Now with that out of the way, put on something warm, get ready to swim through some icy water, and let's go. Now first of all, just by having the term whale in its name, you could probably assume that this creature is fairly large. Looking at it from a distance, you can notice that it has a bulkier body which measures up to 30 meters, which is just a little over half of a Reaper Leviathan's body, which is finished with a large tail which splits off into two parts. The sides of its body are done with two large wing-like fins which it uses together with the tail to propel itself and maneuver around the rest of its flock. Coming a bit closer, you can probably notice that in color it is mostly gray and dark blue, with spots of purple and light blue all the way to white on the bottom of its body, and small bioluminescent spots of orange and pinkish colors running down along its sides. Looking closer at its head, you can see a large mouth with a bunch of horizontal ridges that run alongside it in three distinct patterns at the top and one at the bottom, a pair of eyes with a pill-like photophore in front of them, which is an organ that can be found on some real-life fish as well, that give off some orange bioluminescence, and two glowing horns which dot the top of its head, presumably where the skull meets the rib cage. Looking into its mouth, while there are no discernible teeth, there is actually a model for its tongue, and the rest of its body can in some spots be seen as being covered in barnacles and other small microorganisms. Now interestingly enough, if we look at the end of its wing-like fins, we can see a pair of what somewhat resembles the feelers of sea treaders. So you could perhaps make the argument that they maybe use these to feel around their environment and maybe help identify and localize other members of their species, somewhat like the sea treaders do. But of course, these could also just be slightly less developed parts of the fins, or simply be put in for artistic reasons. Now looking at their behavior, they can often be found in a herd of other whales, most notably in the Arctic biome, the deep Arctic biome, or the Lillipad Islands, where they will slowly move around, periodically diving deep into the water all the way down to the seabed, and then coming back to the surface, jumping out of the water, and repeating the whole process. Every once in a while you can see them also opening their mouth and doing a big gulp to consume groups of fish mostly comprised of bladderfish and hoopfish. The most notably perhaps, the player can actually interact with this animal, which makes them so freakishly adorable, by either approaching the side of its head where its eyes are, at which point the player is prompted to somewhat pet it, or if you approach the top of its head from the back, the player is actually able to grab the horns and enjoy a nice ride on the back of this peaceful giant. Whether it is a bug or a feature, as of right now, the player's oxygen will not be consumed if riding a glow whale. Now interestingly enough, looking at its behavior, some people have begun to compare them to the baleen whales of Earth, specifically regarding their feeding behavior. However, supposedly their appearance is much more similar to whale sharks, which currently happen to be the largest fish on Earth. Now that is essentially all of the information we are outright given by the game. However, there are some theories and a few points of trivia that we can still go into just to top this video off. Now first of all, looking at its head, some people have begun to theorize that it does share some surprising similarities with the research specimen Theta, most specifically its bulkier body, and what could be presumed could have been two pairs of eyes somewhere down in its ancestors. However, I don't know how likely this is considering the research specimen Theta's hand are very different from the fins that can be found on the glow whale, and also the fact that it couldn't possibly have that thick of a skeleton, otherwise it would lose out on a lot of its maneuverability simply due to huge weight. Now, could it have been a distant relative? It probably could have, but without any further data, we cannot reach any definite conclusions. Now, some people have also begun to theorize that these things might live in some sort of a symbiotic relationship with the Sea Emperor Leviathan, one of which can be found very close a large herd of these. However, currently I would say that is mostly due to level design and how things are placed in the world, and I don't necessarily see how we can draw a direct connection there. And finally, as the finishing point for this video, the design for the glow whale was actually created by Pat Presley during pre-production for the original Subnautica, but it just never got past the concept phase and instead has been pushed and repurposed for Below Zero. But with that, that was all of the information I was currently able to find on the glow whale, so I hope you guys enjoyed the first lore video from Below Zero. But if you did, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All of those would be very much appreciated. And if you have any points that I missed, which does sometimes happen, or theories that you would like to propose, make sure to leave those down in the comments as well. I would very much love to read them. With that, I want to wish you all a beautiful rest of today, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.